When you think of one team, one name that is F1, it will always be Ferrari. The only team to compete in every season of F1. They have 16 constructor titles with 15 drivers' title to their name. And my god, do they look good in red. But what if none of this happened? What if Ferrari never entered the 1950 season in Monaco, with Ascari famously finishing second place? So I will be going over every season that Ferrari either got a driver's and or a constructor's title in, and I will be going through the change of who wins that championship, all of the battles, and who wins the constructor's championship as well. Now, of course, there would be more seasons that were affected without Ferrari being there, even the seasons with them not winning. However, I might have to save that for a whole other video. For now, I'm just going to be focusing on the driver's titles and the constructor title years. But stick around for the whole video as things are about to get juicy. And like and subscribe if you like what you see. I'm trying to get to 2,000 subs by the end of March, and we're almost there. We've got to 1,910 now. Thank you all so much. If you like what you see, get involved and let's bloody do this. What a decade to be alive. I wouldn't know, but I'm sure someone would agree with this. And whoo-wee! What a new world we live in as well, as this was the first decade where people would start to think maybe crossing in front of moving cars wasn't a good idea, as the first automated don't walk sign was placed in New York. But there's a few things in the 1950s that make F1 slightly different that you'll need to know. As first of all, the first few seasons I will be talking about, you'll notice I won't be talking about the constructors. And that is because constructor standings did not actually happen in F1 until 1958. And realistically, it was because a lot of the teams, take 1951 for instance, Alfa Romeo had 6 drivers alone in the standings. There could be more, because there was a lot of drivers who took part in special races, just one-offs, especially in the earlier seasons. There was the Indianapolis as well, so you had one-off American cars in there as well. So it gets very chaotic with all the teams before they have the standardized, realistically 3 in the early years to 2 drivers in F1. And then the next thing is the drop point system. Now, I have to talk about this in all of my what if scenarios, but you're going to notice there's going to be a few times in this video where I might tally up someone's points and it doesn't actually tally up to what I say they ended on. They've had to drop some points because they've done too well. And some seasons you can only score in the best 5 of your races. Some it's the first 6 of the season, then it's the last 7. It really depends on what season we're talking about. If I talked about it every single season, I'd be here forever. But if you're curious as to why I would be doing this, that's why. Oh, and also for simplicity, when the fastest lap was given a point, so in the 50s, you'll notice if a driver takes the position of the person who got the fastest lap, I will just be giving that driver the fastest lap. Simple, the ground rules are done, now for the fun part. So, the seasons with no change in F1 when Ferrari doesn't actually enter would be 1950, 51, 54, 55, 57 and 59. So we'll start off with 1952, and this was the first Drivers' Championship season for Ferrari. Ascari won with 36 points, but quite excitingly for you guys, not really me considering how much maths I have to do because of this, but the top 4 in the standings this season were all Ferrari drivers, so they all get disqualified because they never existed. So we actually have someone who didn't even finish in the top 4 winning the championship this season. So the main contender would be Mike Hawthorne. Originally the best of the rest, he would now finish on 24 points, picking up an extra 3 points in Belgium, 5 points in Britain, and 6 points in the Netherlands. Manzon, originally in 6th place, with 9 points, would now score 23, 1 point off Hawthorne's, picking up extra points in Belgium, France, and the Netherlands. However, Berra, all the way down in 10th originally in the first scenario with Ferrari, well, the real life scenario, 10th, he jumps up to 3rd place in the standings on a tally of 6 points normally. He would gain extra points in Switzerland, Germany and France, finishing on 21 points. An extra 15 points for this point system was incredible. To be 3 points off the title when originally you came 10th in the standings? Crazy. But as you could tell from that, Mike Hawthorne does take the first championship. But for the first season, it's already looking juicy. 1953, another Ascari season with the Scarlet Red Ferrari. Now, originally, Ascari wins the title with 34.5 points to Fangio in second. Now, Fangio's made my life quite easy for the 53 season, where he was so much closer to Ascari than the rest of the grid, we pretty much can assume he won the championship. However, we will just double check and see exactly what went down. So, Fangio ends off the season with 6 extra points, and here's where the drop point system comes in, as he would have gained another 3 points, however he doesn't get them in Switzerland, finishing on 33 points now. And then the next closest rival to Fangio would be Gonzalez, who gains 5 points in Argentina, 4.5 points in the Netherlands, 2 in France, 2.5 in Britain, meaning he ends on 27.5. So my hunch was right, it still wasn't enough to get to Fangio, meaning Fangio takes the new 53 title. 1956. This is normally a season where Fangio, he's moved to Ferrari, wins the title with 30 points. You know the drill, not anymore. Well, Moss the favourite gains 2 points in Belgium, half a point in France as he shared the car for this race, and Germany he got an extra 3 points, meaning he ends the season with 32.5 points. Berra, the next closest challenger, will have quite a lot to do to close that gap to Moss. However, he gains points in Argentina, Monaco, Belgium, France, Britain and Germany, collecting 19 extra points throughout the season without Ferrari intervention. Now ending originally on 41 points before drop points, even after that he gets 38 points, absolutely dominating Moss, the leading contender for that title, meaning Berra is now a Drivers' World Champion. Incredible stuff, but you have to feel bad for Moss at this point. Every single scenario I've done so far, he has been absolutely trampled on. The first one, with the 25 point system, he got screwed over every corner, and it looks like it's exactly the same thing that's going to happen here. So, what happens in 58? To finish off a very exciting decade, we originally see the championship won by Hawthorne with 42 points, now with your best 6 results, closely followed behind by Sterling Moss on 41. Now, like 1956, Moss has a great advantage going into the season. Can anyone catch him? Well, let's find out how many points he ended up on after the Ferraris are taken out. And Moss only gains 3 points in France, moving up to a 44 points tally, which is to be expected because that was still quite a lot of points, so it meant Ferrari wasn't really getting in his way. However, the next contender of Brooks, he gained points in Britain, getting an extra 2 points, ending on 26. So Moss, with an astounding lead, takes the title in 1958. Finally, something goes his way, and Sterling Moss, just like Berra, is now a Formula 1 Drivers' Champion. From what we've seen in this first decade, we already have 2 brand new driver champions, and team-wise, this is the first constructor season I can talk about. Vanwall still takes the title. They had a pretty demanding lead, it wasn't very close. The 1960s, the decade for great television. This was the first time we saw the airing of Scooby-Doo, so we have to ask ourselves, what's new that the Ferrari do? Well, Ferrari decided to take quite a bit of a break from winning and decided to see how it was like to lose, only winning titles in 1961 and 1964. So this decade makes my life pretty easy. But 61, we have another close championship. But it was originally with both Ferraris, with Phil Hill beating his teammate on 34 points, Von Trips on 33. A very close title there. However, without Ferrari, who are the next contenders for the championship? Well, Moss on 21 points was the next contender. But oh no, don't you worry, he wasn't sitting there all by himself. Dan Gurney was also on identical points with 21 in the original season. Moss gained points in Netherlands and Belgium, going up to 27 points overall. So realistically, 6 points gained is not the best position to be in, considering Dan Gurney gained points in Monaco, scoring an extra 4 points, 5 in Belgium, 3 in France, 3 in Britain, 2 in Germany, and 3 in Italy. But due to drop points, he wouldn't get all of these results, but he still ends on a whopping 36 points, absolutely destroying Sterling Moss in the process. And again, we have another new driver's title holder in Dan Gurney. But that's for the drivers. what happens over at the constructors? Well, in this season, it very much, without Ferrari, was Lotus versus Porsche. Or Porsche. Comment down below which one's correct. Well, Lotus now end up with 4 wins to their name with 1 second place, ending on 38 points. And Porsche, they could only manage 2 wins and 3 second places, ending on 32. So Lotus would take the first constructors standing change. 1964. Originally, a brilliant battle between Surtees and Hill, but now with Ferrari gone, it's now on Hill in the BRM on 39 points versus Clark in the Lotus with 32 points. So Hill gains points in the Netherlands and Germany, ending on 43, and weirdly enough, you'd think it'd be closer, but because of how many DNFs Jim Clark actually had, and whenever he finished a race he basically did as good as he could, the new system barely affects Jim Clark. He only gains points in Mexico, moving up to 34 points, meaning Graham Hill easily takes the 64 title. However, on the constructors side of things, Lotus, again on this list, trying to get another constructors standings, gain 3 points in Mexico, going up to 40 points. But sadly for them, this was not enough points to challenge BRM, who ended on 4 wins in Monaco, Germany, Austria and the US, with a second place, ending on a whopping 48 points to their name. So with the 60s out of the way, let's move on to the 70s. The 70s, the decade we have the first microcomputers entering the world, with its motto of it's not about the size of the machinery, but how you use it. Or at least that's what it tells people. But in F1, Ferrari had a much better decade, winning titles in 75, 76, 77 and 79. So, 1975. Originally a season when Niki Lauda would go on to dominate the sport, with a whopping 64.5 points to his name, with Fittipaldi quite far behind on 45. But now Ferrari never entered F1? Who takes the crown? Well, we'll start off with the main contender, Fittipaldi, who gains 3 points in Monaco, 2 points in Belgium, 1 point in Sweden, 1 point in France, 3 points in Italy, and 3 points in the US. So he would end up with an extra 13 points to get to 58. So it's going to be hard for the next closest contender of Reutemann to catch up, but what can he do? Well, he gains points in Brazil, getting 1 extra point, 2 points in Spa, 3 points in Sweden, 3 points in the Netherlands, and 3 points in Italy, ending on a respectable 49, but still quite a bit of way to go to Fittipaldi. So Fittipaldi now takes the 1975 title. But excitingly, the constructors was a lot closer than the drivers this season, as this normally ended with Brabham just beating out McLaren by 1 point. So Brabham would gain 2 points in Monaco, 2 in Spa, 3 in Sweden, 3 in the Netherlands, and 3 in Italy. So they would now end on 67 points. And then we move on to McLaren, who would gain 1 point in South Africa, 3 in Monaco, 2 in France, 3 in Italy, and 3 in the US, gaining 12 extra points. But sadly for them, that would not be enough, as they ended with 65 points this season, which meant that Brabham would take the constructors standings for this season. So Fittipaldi takes the title from Lauda and Brabham takes it from Ferrari. 1976. Now, this is a very interesting season for me, because we obviously know James Hunt driver-wise, he definitely won the 76 championship. There was a whopping 20 points gap to technically his next closest rival of Scheckter if you take out Lauda. So we know James Hunt won the championship. However, it's the constructors that gets very interesting, because in this situation, McLaren's second driver of Mass did not help James Hunt out a lot this season, meaning they actually didn't win the constructors on the original season. 74 points to their name, in second place to Tyrrell with 71 points to their name. So McLaren now gain 1 point in Brazil, 2 in the US, 2 in Spa, 1 in Monaco, 1 in Sweden, but they have to drop some points in Brazil, 80 points for McLaren. Then Tyrrell, on the other hand, gained 3 points in Brazil, 1 in South Africa, 5 in the US, 3 in Spa, 3 in Monaco, 3 in Britain, 1 in the Netherlands, and 2 in Italy. So incredibly, because of their consistency throughout the season, and getting it where the drop point system doesn't actually affect them, they move up to a whopping 89 points for Tyrrell, easily taking the title from McLaren, meaning we have Tyrrell as the Constructors' champions for 76, James Hunt retains his title. 77. So we'll start off with how it normally went. And this was another season with Niki Lauda winning with 72 points. But the next two drivers that will be taking that driver's title up for grabs would be Jody Scheckter in the Wolf and Andretti in the Lotus. So we'll start off with Jody Scheckter. He gains points in South Africa, getting 3 extra, 2 in the US, 2 in Spain, 3 in Germany, 2 in the Netherlands, ending his season with 67 points now. What happens with Andretti? Well, he gains points in Argentina, getting an extra 1, 2 in Monaco, and 1 in Sweden. So actually, he falls quite dramatically short of the line this time round, ending the season off with 51 points to his name. So Jody Scheckter wins the championship, excitingly, in a Wolf car. Crazy constructor to win the championship. And constructor-wise, it gets quite crazy because Wolf actually only scored points with Jody Scheckter this season. That's how brilliant he was. But it also means they're under a bit of threat, as Wolf finished the season off with 67 points to their name, as suspected. But Lotus gained 1 point in Argentina, 2 in Brazil, 2 in Monaco, 1 in Sweden, and 2 in Britain, meaning they end the season with 71. So the final contender for this season, can McLaren take it to Lotus? Well, McLaren gain 3 points in Brazil, 1 in South Africa, 1 in Spain, 3 in Monaco, 2 in Austria, and 1 in Italy, gaining an extra 11 points. Meaning, originally, they were on 60 points. They now end the season again on 71 points. So, Lotus and McLaren equal points for the constructor standings. Let's see who got the most wins. Well, McLaren had 4 to their name, while Lotus had 5. Meaning, Lotus take the 77 constructor standings. It's not gonna get closer than that. That is ridiculous. But Lotus win another championship with Ferrari out of the way. And then to finish off a brilliant decade of F1 in 1979. Ferrari originally had a 1-2 with Villeneuve and Scheckter, with Scheckter taking another title. However, this time round, it's all about Jones and Lafitte and their teams Williams and Ligier. So we'll start off with Jones. He gains 5 points in the US and 1 in France, ending on 46. Not the biggest jump, so I'm a little bit worried for him, because here comes Lafitte coming right up close to him. He gains 3 points in Spa, 1 point in France, 2 points in Austria, and 2 points in Netherlands. So an extra 8 in total. So he just falls short with 44 to his name. Meaning Jones wins the season with 46, 2 points ahead. And then constructors, like I said, it was a two-way battle between Williams and Ligier. And Williams, well, they gained 5 in the US, 3 in Monza, 2 in France, 1 in Austria, 5 in Italy, and 2 in Canada. So they end on 93 points, quite a big jump for them. So how will Ligier fight back? Well, they gain points in the US with an extra 2, 3 in Spa, 1 in Monaco, 1 in Britain, 2 in Austria, and 3 in the Netherlands. So actually they end up finishing quite a mile off the Williams, meaning Williams take the 1979 title. We are entering our 4th decade without Ferrari in F1. They still have decided it's not worth it. The money's not there. F1, boo, boo. So they still haven't joined the sport. But in the rest of the world, the 80s was a fantastic time. We figured out how to time travel, but bad news for any murderers out there, this was when DNA fingerprinting was invented, meaning that it was going to be a lot harder to get away with any mischievous acts that you were planning. But coming back to Ferrari, what happens when they're gone? Well, the 80s weren't a brilliant time for Ferrari, meaning they actually only won titles in 82 and 83. Again, makes my life easy, and we'll start off with 1982. Oh, and by the way, in 1980, they finished the season with 8 points. Has to be the worst season for Ferrari in F1 history. But for 82, Ferrari would finish with 74 points to their name. But driver-wise, a Ferrari driver would not win, as Keke Rosberg would win the title for Williams. And with him having again a pretty big gap, when you take out the Ferrari drivers to the next contender, I'm pretty sure Rosberg still takes it, but we'll double check. Rosberg gains 1 point in the US, 2 in Netherlands, 2 in France, 2 in Germany, gaining 7 points, ending on 51. Whereas Watson in the McLaren gains 1 in the US, 3 in Italy, and that's it. So nowhere near on 43 points. Constructor-wise though, it is now McLaren versus Renault. So McLaren get the 43 points from Watson and a new 33 points from Niki Lauda, as he would get an extra 3 points, meaning McLaren end on 76. What can Renault do? Well, Renault end with Prost getting 36 points and Arnaud getting only 31, meaning they only get 67 to McLaren's 76, meaning McLaren now take the Constructors' Championship for 1982. And then similar to 1983, another season where Ferrari didn't actually win the title for the drivers, but won the Constructors by being more consistent with their two drivers. Well, it does actually mean there's still stuff to talk about for the drivers, as Ferrari intervention does affect even the driver standing without any of them winning, because this was a very close season between Piquet and Prost. And so Piquet, he gains 1 point in Spa and 2 in Austria, ending on 62 points. However, Alain Prost, he gains 1 point in Brazil, 3 points in San Marino, 2 in Canada, 1 in Germany, meaning he ends with an extra 7 points on 64 points. Meaning he now takes the new championship 2 points ahead of Piquet. Alain Prost is now a 5-time, well, he'll get there, becoming a 5-time world champion. However, on the Constructors side, Renault gains 64 points now from Prost, and they gain an extra 8 points from Chiva on 30, meaning they end on 94 points. And the next closest rival this season, constructor-wise, was Brabham, and they ended with 62 points from Piquet and 15 from Patrese. So now in total, they get 77 points to their name, meaning Renault take the new Constructors' Championship. So we got 2 drivers changing, with Alain Prost taking the title, with his team Renault also taking the Constructors. But that is it for the 80s. But don't you worry, because if you're an F1 fan, you'll know, oh boy, there's a lot of seasons to go over in the 2000s. So the 2000s, pop punk was in full swing, YouTube was just starting out, and we had birthed the creation of Facebook, which would give us some of the most diabolical creations on the planet. But for Ferrari, they would win a drivers and or a constructors title in 2000, 01, 02, 03, 04, 07 and 08. So with 2000, the first season, you're going to notice it's going to start getting juicy because Ferrari hold a lot of the points in these seasons, meaning when they're gone, there's a lot of reallocating to the rest of the grid, which also meant this decade took me bloody forever to get ready. Oh my god, it probably took me the whole rest of the video's time just for the 2000s. Oh god. But for anyone who doesn't know, Schumacher and Ferrari won the titles all the way leading to 2004. So you're not going to hear me talk about the original season that much because we know Schumacher won all of these seasons with Ferrari as the top dog. Now, I do say it does get juicy, and I promise you it does. But the first season, it's very easy to see who won the constructors, as there was such a big gap from McLaren on 152 points to Williams on 36 that it's pretty clear, even if you get rid of Ferrari's points, that McLaren still take the title with the extra points. So McLaren easily gets the constructors title. But driver-wise, it's now all about the 2 McLaren drivers of Hakkinen, who originally ended on 89, to Coulthard, who ended on 73. So Hakkinen gains 4 points in Imola, 4 in Europe, 1 in Monaco, 3 in Canada, 4 in Germany, 4 in Italy, 4 in Japan, and 3 in Malaysia, ending the new season with 116 points. Well, can Coulthard catch up to him? Well, he gains points in Imola with 2, 2 in Europe, 2 in Canada, 2 in Germany, 2 in Hungary, 1 in Spa, 2 in the US, 2 in Japan, and 4 in Malaysia, ending the season on 92 points. It's still a big jump for him. However, 116 for Hakkinen to 92 David Coulthard. Hakkinen now becomes a 3-time world champ. Now, talking about 2001, it's one of my favourite seasons for a change that will happen in the sport, as the 2 main contenders after the Ferraris this season were David Coulthard in the McLaren or Ralf Schumacher in the Williams. So no matter what happens this season, we will have a new driver winning the championship. So, Coulthard, how many points does he get? Well, he gains points in Australia, an extra 4, 6 in Malaysia, 4 in Imola, 1 in Spain, 2 in Monaco, 2 in Europe, 3 in France, 6 in Hungary, 4 in Spa, 2 in the US, and 2 in Japan, gaining 36 points, finishing on 101. Now, Ralf Schumacher, he gains 2 points in Malaysia, 1 in Europe, 4 in France, 3 in Hungary, 2 in Spa, 2 in Italy, and 1 in Japan, meaning he only gains 15 points, ending the season with 64 points. David Coulthard absolutely dominates the sport for 2001, becoming an F1 Drivers' Champion. Who would have thought? Brilliant stuff. You can't say no to a Schumacher title, but wow, wouldn't it be great if David Coulthard won? But with Ferrari out of the way, that's exactly what happens. And I almost forgot to put this in the video, but for the 2001 Constructors title, McLaren does beat out Williams. Almost forgot to mention it, But yes, McLaren do win the 2001 title over Williams in 2001. Now, in 2002, it was all to do with the Williams drivers of Montoya on 50 and Ralf Schumacher on 42. So we'll start off with Montoya, who gained 4 points in Australia, 1 in Brazil, 3 in Imola, 4 in Spain, 6 in Austria, 6 in Britain, 1 in France, 2 in Germany, 6 in Spa, 3 in the US, and finally 3 in Japan. Ending the season with an extra 39 points to his name, ending on 89. By the way, that just shows how dominant Ferrari were in 2002, getting that many extra points. Incredible stuff. But can Ralf Schumacher gain more than that? Well, he gets 4 extra points in Brazil, 6 in Imola, 3 in Austria, 2 in Monaco, 2 in Canada, 3 in Europe, 1 in Britain, 1 in France, 2 in Germany, 6 in Hungary, and 2 in Spa, getting an extra 32 points to his name, ending the season on 74. So, again, brilliant season for him. However, this means that Montoya now takes the crown with 89 points. Constructor-wise, it's Williams versus McLaren. Now, Williams had quite a big gap to McLaren, around 27 points originally, so it should be Williams taking this, but we'll just double check. Well, I can tell you Williams now get 163 points, which is a lot more than McLaren got, meaning Williams now take the Constructors title. So, it's Montoya winning with Williams taking the Constructors. With 2003 done, I think we all know, considering who was the next closest to Schumacher on this season, it's most likely going to be Raikkonen, but let's double check. So, driver-wise, Raikkonen gains 2 in Imola, 2 in Austria, 2 in Canada, 1 in France, 2 in Britain, 3 in Italy, 2 in the US, and 2 in Japan, gaining 16 points, now on a total of 107. Well, the next closest contender would be Montoya, and he gains points in Imola with 2, 3 in Spain, 2 in Canada, 2 in Britain, 2 in Italy, 1 in the US, getting an extra 12 points, ending on 94, meaning Kimi Raikkonen does take the Drivers' Championship. By the way, you can now see how much bloody maths and research I had to do for this video, because every single basically race I had to go through, add all of these points to it. My god, did it take a long time. But anyway, constructors wise, let's see what McLaren gained. Well, they end the season on 168 points, 2 very closely behind Williams' 166. So it ends extremely close between the two. However, McLaren just pipped them to the title, meaning McLaren gain another title from Ferrari, who again have just vanished into thin air. Poof, I wonder what they're doing. Maybe they're in IndyCar, maybe they're in NASCAR, maybe they're somewhere. I don't know. No, maybe they're an F2 team like Prima. And then we get to 2004, and oh baby, this has to be my favourite season of the whole scenario. I wonder why. If you couldn't guess what's going on here, well, this was another season of Ferrari domination, with them finishing 1-2 Schumacher and Barrichello. However, you had this amazing gentleman behind you, Jenson Button, finishing in 3rd place with 85 points, and his next contender would be Fernando Alonso on 59. So surely he's got it in the bag. Well, let's go find out how many points he gains and see. So Button gains 2 points in Australia, 2 in Malaysia, 4 in Bahrain, 2 in Imola, 2 in Spain, 4 in Europe, 4 in Canada, 2 in France, 3 in Britain, 2 in Germany, 2 in Hungary, 4 in Italy, 2 in China, and 2 in Japan, getting 37 points overall, ending the season on 122 points. Then we have Alonso, who gained 4 points in Australia, 2 in Malaysia, 2 in Bahrain, 1 in Imola, 3 in Spain, 2 in Europe, 2 in France, 1 in Britain, 2 in Germany, 4 in Hungary, 1 in China, 1 in Japan, and 1 in Brazil, meaning he gained 26 points throughout the season, only ending on 85. So it was a good recovery from him. However, Jenson Button easily smashes the drivers' standings this season, taking home his first driver's title, but not his only, as now he is a double F1 world champion. So now constructor wise, it is very much BAR Honda versus Renault. So after tallying it all up, Honda now end the season with 174 points, with Renault coming up with a respectable 155, but still nowhere close to Honda. So to have never won a constructor's title before, to now gain one. BAR Honda, welcome to the club. Now going into the penultimate season of this scenario, 2007, of course famously won by Kimi Raikkonen originally, Ferrari would actually win the constructors' standings. However, this is a little bit of a weird scenario I've got going on, because in this world where Ferrari never joined F1, it means McLaren never stole Ferrari documents. So for me, that means 2007, because Ferrari were never in the sport, they get reinstated with their points. And I can tell you right now, constructor-wise, it's not close when McLaren are back. McLaren win the Constructors 2007 title. They had no one to steal from, so technically they never got disqualified. But driver-wise, it was still Alonso versus Hamilton, with both of them ending on identical points. Who takes home the crown? Well, Hamilton gains 2 in Australia, 2 in Bahrain, 2 in Spain, 4 in France, 2 in Britain, 1 in Europe, 2 in Turkey, 3 in Spa, 2 in Brazil, gaining an extra 20 points. And well, Alonso, he gains 2 in Australia, 2 in Bahrain, 2 in Spain, 1 in Canada, 2 in France, 2 in Britain, 1 in Hungary, 4 in Turkey, 4 in Spa, 2 in China, and a whopping 4 in Brazil. Meaning he gained an extra 26 points, ending the season with 135 points to his name, taking the 2007 season, becoming a 3-time world champ, and doing it back to back to back. What an incredible achievement for the young rookie, still to this day, Fernando Alonso. And then, finally, we have eventually made it. I believe this will probably be about 30-ish minutes into the video. It's actually been about 50 minutes of recording, because there's a lot of stats I have to double check. But 2008, of course, Ferrari actually end on winning the Constructors' Championship. Now, they didn't win the drivers, Lewis Hamilton still won this. And with no one really being close driver-wise for the final season, we can pretty much tell Lewis Hamilton won the championship, with his closest rival 23 points behind him. However, it is the Constructors that still gets quite juicy. But constructor-wise, originally, McLaren end with 151 points, BMW Sauber's 135. Well, McLaren gain an extra 20 points without Ferrari being involved in these seasons, moving up to 171. But quite miraculously, BMW Sauber gain a whopping extra 40 points with Ferrari being out of the way, meaning they go up to beat McLaren by 4 points on 175. So we have the second new Constructors title holders of BMW Sauber. To have that big of a gap to overtake McLaren just because Ferrari aren't in the sport. What a way to technically end the video. But that means that Lewis Hamilton still takes the 2008 title. However, BMW Sauber are your Constructors champion for this season. With every single season done where Ferrari have won a drivers or constructors now being pushed on to the next best contenders, as Ferrari have not been in the sport anymore and all of their points reallocated to the drivers. You can see now why I couldn't do every season, as this video would be about 4 hours long. But a quick overview of exactly what happened is as follows. Well, sadly for Ascari, as he won all of his titles at Ferrari, he never won an F1 title in this scenario. Hawthorne now actually stays at 1 title, gaining his new one, but losing his original at Ferrari. Fangio is the same, gaining and losing a title, ending still on 5 titles to his name. Bearer becomes an F1 champion, and same applies to Sterling Moss becoming a new Formula 1 champion. Phil Hill loses his only title, with Dan Gurney, who now becomes an F1 champion as well. John Surtees is now not an F1 champion, with Graham Hill moving up to 3 titles to his name. Niki Lauda losing 2 of his championships, ending with 1. Fittipaldi now moves up to 3 titles. Jody Scheckter gains and loses a title, still ending on 1. Alan Jones becomes a 2-time world champ. Prost adds 1 to his tally, getting 5, with Piquet now down to 2. Hakkinen now becomes a 3-time champion, whilst Coulthard also becomes a 1-time champion. Now going on to the driver who lost the most amount of titles, as Schumacher was a Ferrari legend. It was going to happen. He's now down to a 2-time world champion, which is crazy, but considering how much a Ferrari legend he is and how much he won there, it makes sense. Montoya now has a title to his name. Raikkonen becomes a double world champion. Button also becomes a double world champion, with finally Alonso winning 3 titles now. So a lot of changes driver-wise, but for the constructors, it means that Lotus now move up to 9 constructors to titles, winning more than Mercedes at the minute. BRM move up to 2 titles. Brabham move up to 3. Tyrrell again move up to 2 titles. Williams gain 2 titles for them as well, with 11 to their name. Renault gain another title, moving up to 3. McLaren gain bloody 5 titles to their name, moving up to 14 now. BAR Honda join the club, getting another title to their name, whilst BMW Sauber also joins the club, getting a title for themselves as well. And those are all the changes that happen when Ferrari do not join F1. Now, this video was so fun to make. I'm going to have to make this part very quick, as the battery on my camera is literally on about 2%. But thank you all so much for watching. I'd really appreciate the support on this video, as this did take me 2 to 3 days basically of researching and doing the maths to get everything spot on. If there is a mistake, comment down below. I'm pretty sure there's no mistakes. But thank you all so much for watching. It's going to be quite a long video. It might actually be the longest video on my channel, because I can see on the recording it's now been an hour. This video could generally be, after editing, 30-40 minutes. So that also means potentially it's not coming out on Friday. So the camera did just shut off. But thank you all so much for watching. If this does come out on Saturday, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all later. Have a good weekend. Take care.